And this is where it gets emotional for me, because we don't seem to want to protect creation.
Woo. We don't seem to want to protect creation.
We do not. We are completely childless in our mindset to think that the creator who created someone to care for us, and that form of creation is our parents, and that we don't want to take care of our parents, and we don't want to take care of who created our parents, where you've got this 40% gap now with millennials who are saying with their parents, it's toxic, I don't want to deal with it. How do you completely eliminate what created you? And in this instance, the revelation I had was, God, is that why there is dementia? Because if I don't want to care for my parent, and if I don't want to care for you and actually honor what you told me to do, is that why they can't remember that I'm here? Because I think that would be an appropriate punishment for me. But I'm not down that lane of fire and brimstone. I'm not down that lane of God trying to come into our lives and punishing us. I'm down that lane of saying Ephesians 6:2 is honorable to care for the one who cared for you.
Right. Love is a treasure chest, but once opened, our hearts become vulnerable.
I went back to Vegas. It was this guy. He appeared as a friend. Sure enough, it led to infidelity.
Alignment can't be ignored.
We talked about certain topics as far as having kids. She didn't want to have kids. And that was one of the red flags.
And I know you desire marriage. So I think it's best you move on with your life.
What you do, Lisa? What you do?
I told him, okay.
She didn't ask me why.
I knew several other women's bodies better than I knew my own. I watched their videos of them having sex, so I would try to imitate that.
No discussion is off limits. Dear Future Wifey Podcast brings healing.
You inspire us to try God a little bit more.
But through this platform, I have realized that it's possible. It's possible to love again.
The conversations have really helped me to change my perspective on relationships.
Season 7 is all about tough topics. I'm Lateris R. Whitfield, and welcome to the Dear Future Wifey Podcast. Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey Podcast. I'm your host, Lateris R. Whitfield. Listen, are you still shacking up with us? If you're still shacking up with us, can we get a commitment? Hit that subscription button and subscribe. Make sure you turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified about upcoming episodes. You know, after meeting this amazing woman, she began to open my mind about something that, you know, you kind of don't think about until you're thrusted into that position. That position has been a caregiver. I know y'all have heard me speak about her in recent episodes, and those of you who have been afforded the opportunity to see our live shows and you got a chance to meet her and hug her neck and share with her your amazing stories of your experiences as a caregiver. And she's been able to give you valuable insight and tools in order to do that position better. Well, today we have an intimate conversation with my buddy, my friend. Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey Podcast, my homie, the Caregiver Coach Pat Bailey. How you doing?
Don't y'all love how he makes you feel so good?
Well,
but yeah, I feel pretty good today. How you doing, Lateris?
Man, I'm doing great. But you know, and the cool thing about it is last week, I don't know when this episode actually run, but I decided to take the path of doing the Alzheimer's brain study.
Yes, the health and aging brain study health disparities, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
and I said, I want to practice what I preach. So I said, let me go ahead and do that. And I believe that it's going to be enlightening when I find out these results.
Well, you know, one of the things that's really clear is we have to really dive into this issue of caregiving, Alzheimer's, and aging. And we want to thank you for that commitment, because you volunteered for it.
Yeah, I said, I want to do it. You like, really? I said, yes.
Yes.
And so
yes.
the process is... It's intrusive, but I believe that every question that was asked is going to help me do my life better. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive. I don't want to wait till whatever symptoms or situations get out of control, that if I can be on the onset of it, I believe that I could be better positioned to help mitigate whatever consequences, if there are issues that I'm gonna run into and years to come.
Well, I tell you one thing that's really important is that you actually covered off on one of the major points of our discussion today. You know what that's called?
What's that?
You need to be prepared.
You need to be prepared. Well, let me ask you this. The National Caregiver Day, what is it and what made you decide to create National Caregiver Day of Prayer?
You know, one of the things that is interesting in being a former caregiver and now caring for others through the platform of Finding New Tomorrows is that I'm from the lane of branding. But people really don't understand what that actually means in a sense of truism. When you manage brand portfolios, there is a target consumer of which you're trying to resolve their problems. And as a caregiver, I had major problems. I mean, my story was mommy coming to Texas. I raised my hand because I'm anal. I'm that one. I just think I'm Superwoman. I can just do everything. I mean, really, I have it really bad, Lateris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to be on the
I haven't noticed that at all.
You haven't really?
No, I haven't. These months of getting to know you, you just don't seem to be that at all.
You mean I'm not controlling?
No, not at all.
Oh, not at all?
No, not at all. I believe you're more
what?
carefree.
Your audience knows something's up with that, Lateris. So when I got to the latter phase of my mother, the reckoning of it all was the amount of time that I spent in prayer. Because I needed to deal with the issue of hope.
Yeah.
And healing and faith, because I know where this journey now is going.
Yeah.
I am so not confused. So you fast forward to my finally taking up my assignment as an ordained pastor, being the certified dementia practitioner, actually being a certified...
Hold on, you said certified dementia practitioner.
Absolutely, certified dementia practitioner.
I never knew that.
Look, aging is complicated.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's is not normal. So how do we expect the audience or all of us to understand how to do this when if it's not normal, we don't have the typical tools available to care for our aging parents? So in this instance, by being a CDP, you are taught all of these different techniques and tools. And you know what you're also taught that's extremely important?
What's that?
You're taught how to use the tools relative to others who have to serve you. So you have to think about the fact that you're going to have to engage so many other people in terms of caregivers, in terms of, oh yeah, that big old H word, everybody hates it, which is hospice.
Yeah.
How are you prepared if you've got to place your parent or your loved one in a facility, residential care, let's talk about nursing home, really don't want to talk about that. Maybe you financially can go down the assisted living lane.
Yeah.
How exactly do you now engage there? I can't just turn my parent over to someone and walk away.
Yeah.
There needs to be techniques and tools. So what I was able to do is merge my journaling over the years of caring for my mom with techniques that was taught. And then considering that I am an African-American female, guess what I did to it?
What?
I blackenized it. I had to make it relative to my mama and my daddy. I had to talk about some Brooke Benton, some Dinah Washington. This is her song list.
Yeah.
And if y'all don't know how to do these dances and I had to let me use my voice. I had to blackenize it.
Blackenize it.
That's right.
So that's cool. So you took notes that you had accumulated in your journal and then created systems in place to be able to hand it over to other people in order to be better as caregivers. You
know what's interesting about it? Through this process, imagine when mom is here, she was kicked out of 4 facilities before I ever found her home.
What was she doing? She was acting up. Because if she anything like you, or if you anything like her, she was getting kicked out.
No, you know what? Yes, she was being kicked out, y'all. She was. But it has everything to do with a facility also being prepared to receive the condition and an actual phase and stage that your parent is in.
Yeah.
And in this instance, she was incontinent. The facility says we can't handle her being incontinent.
What does that mean? Educate me.
She basically was, my mother had a really, really good bathroom in her room. She just chose not to use the bathroom that was in her room.
What would she do, Pat?
Lateris, Are you really gonna make me reveal all of this?
I'm trying to figure because we got to relate to the people. Like I know that I may be in this situation, so I'm just not aware.
Yes. My mother would go to anyone else's room but her own.
She just get up and just walk.
It was a door. She would open it. And so one time, come on. Are we really doing this?
We might as well.
Mama not here anymore to protect herself.
Hey, we here now. Come on now. We in this thing.
Okay, so mom would basically feel the need to go and think about it from the stand of the lane of cognition.
Yeah.
So I need to go. There's a door. The process typically is you open the door and you go in the door. And she went in a lot of doors. And the actual administrator called me one day and said, we have a problem. We have a problem. There were other times she had sundowners. And this is the issue of her actually having an issue of sleep. They may not sleep at night. And so in this instance, it was Christmas time. My mother decided to redo the Christmas tree.
In the lobby.
Christmas tree of a home she was in at that particular time.
Okay.
It's all these things that you go through and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How do I possibly understand all of what's happening? Journal it. Because I had the logic that what I was experiencing, someone else was going to experience as well.
Yes.
Driving the car. How do we actually change that trajectory? Because she should not be driving anymore.
Right.
All of these various scenarios. And in this instance, the hope, healing, and faith associated with National Caregiver Day of Prayer is to be able to help our families be prepared.
So, Pat, I met you back in July, and you've been inundating me with statistics about Alzheimer's. And I'll be honest with you, it seems to be a little hopeless. But then you say that you are optimistic. So how do you manage hope in a hopeless situation?
The same way as Christians, we manage it with Hosea. Our people perish from a lack of knowledge.
Okay.
There's hope when we are informed. So I may not know how to care for my parents in the stage of aging and Alzheimer's. You will. I may not know how to execute all of the documentations associated with a power of attorney.
Right.
Let's talk about wills. Let's talk about trust. So now, in that instance, you'll know now.
Yeah.
I may not understand financially what the implications are. You'll understand how to address doing a budget. I don't understand how, now that they become bedridden, how do I turn them? What do I need to watch for? Because if they're bedridden, there's requirements associated with how to eat. I know it seems like
That's
a lot.
I'm telling you, it's just a lot. And especially when you're trying to manage your own life. You find out it's like you're literally caring for a child, but they're the adult that took care of you when you were a child.
I tell people this all the time, that caregiving is really and truly as explicit as creation itself. You're either going to be a caregiver or you're going to be cared for. And that's actually the equivalent of God teaching us how to family.
That makes sense.
So we shouldn't entertain it as if it's drudgery. We should entertain it from the lane of expectation. Because if we put ourselves in that seat, what would our expectations be? We don't think about that when we think about our babies, when they catch measles and chicken pox. Oh, they still catch chicken pox?
I don't know. That's how far I've been removed from that. But when you think about it, though, it's like, but when you start thinking about the mental state of that parent. So with a child, you're dealing with that child in their early years. So let's say that you're dealing with that sick child, they're 5 or 6 years old. Well, that's different from having the experience of an adult taking care of you, and it's you thrusted in this position in 30 or 40 or 50 years old. Now you've had that 50-year experience with that adult of them being your source of reasoning. They're being the person that's helping you navigate through life. And now here you are. Now they're so codependent, and on top of that, then their mental state is waning, where they're oftentimes don't even remember who you are. And so here you are caring for someone that don't even know who you are. Like that, the emotional weight of that. I understand when some people just say, I just can't deal with it no more.
Well, this is what I'm going to say. We were mandated by God to care for the elderly. I am still in divinity school. And I remember my last class, I'm writing this final, and I'm interrupted to take heed of what I'm writing, take responsibility and accountability. And this is what I saw. And this is what I entertain. I need everybody to understand. And this is where it gets emotional for me, because we don't seem to want to protect creation.
Woo. We don't seem to want to protect creation.
We do not. We are completely childless in our mindset to think that the creator who created someone to care for us, and that form of creation is our parents, and that we don't want to take care of our parents, and we don't want to take care of who created our parents, where you've got this 40% gap now with millennials who are saying with their parents is toxic. I don't want to deal with it. How do you completely eliminate what created you? And in this instance, the revelation I had was, God, is that why there is dementia? Because if I don't want to care for my parent, and if I don't want to care for you and actually honor what you told me to do, is that why they can't remember that I'm here? Because I think that would be an appropriate punishment for me. But I'm not down that lane of fire and brimstone. I'm not down that lane of God trying to come into our lives and punishing us. I'm down that lane of saying Ephesians 6:2 is honorable to care for the one who cared for you.
Right.
And he made it, I think there's over 17 scriptures I touched that 1 hour period on care for the elderly, care for the elderly, care for the elderly. Exodus. I mean, we can come all across the scope of it. I know we're not prepared. I recognize that.
Emotionally, financially, and physically.
Most assuredly, but I can tell you this. It has been done before.
Right.
We were living in multi-generational households.
Right.
And we were taking care of each other in that construct. I will say Alzheimer's is different in this particular lane, but finding new tomorrows and the National Caregiver Day of Prayer, it is to get you prepared and give you hope. Because if you know what's coming, if you know the car is going to break down, do I dare compare my parent to an automobile?
Yeah.
But if you know it's going to break down, you use it as a moment of, I guess you can call it insurance.
Well, let's navigate this. I want to jump in this.
Okay.
I saw a video today where a woman was in conflict with her husband because the husband wanted to move his grandma into the house. Oh my God. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. We got our own kids to take care of. I'm not taking care of your grandma. So what do you say about that? Since this is the Dear Future Wifey podcast where your relationship is challenged, like, what do? You get rid of the wife? Like, who do you get rid of? Do you say, hey, I'm going to honor my wife. The Bible says that the two shall leave their mother and father and cleave to one another. Do they omit? Because at that point, you got to make a decision. Do I take care of the elderly by way of in my household if I can't afford to put my mother or father or whoever in a what's it called?
Assisted living or nursing home. Yes.
Assisted living facility. Then what do? Do you pass the buck over to the next sibling to say somebody got to take care of it, but it's not me because my wife don't agree with it?
So I may not become a fan of anybody on your show right now. So y'all gonna have to forgive me on this one. I'm gonna go on record as saying this. The first love affair was with whom?
Your parents.
Say it one more time. Who did you have your first love affair with?
My parents.
And you want me to walk away from my first love affair. So who said that leave and cleave meant that?
Yeah.
Because from what I understand is that my womb has the capacity to care for you, your mama, and your daddy, if in fact my heart is of God.
There it is. If in fact. And mine is. I cared for my daddy and I cared for my mama. Really?
I was not nearly as prepared for my father because I was actually a single parent as well. and in school at the time.
Ooh, you was in school.
I know it's a lot going on. But Lateris, you know what's interesting? Where is the mercy? Where is the sacrifice as the result of the obedience?
Yeah.
Because I can't walk away from Exodus 20 and 12. I can't walk away from Ephesians 6 and 2. I can't walk away from Matthew 15 and 39, where Jesus is in the synagogue and here comes the Pharisees questioning him about the law. And he says, you talking about me? You're telling me that he basically is implying there are seniors that are hungry, but because the food has been consecrated, we won't feed them with this food now. I'm not in violation of the law. You're in violation of the law. I have to say that this lane of entitlement that we're working in, how double dare you walk away from the person who cared for you? And I don't care if they're toxic and what she said and she don't get along with XYZ. And okay, I admit this, I am single. So people can say, well, you can say that because that's not happening to you. I promise you that when my mom came down to Texas, when I raised my hand, it was because I was convicted at the age of 6. She audibled it. I heard her audible it while I was on my way outside to play. She said, who's going to care for me when I get older? And I said, Mommy, I will. Now, I may have been trying to negotiate to get outside to play some double dutch, or go outside and be the mischievous person I was to get down in the dirt and shoot some marbles or whatever. But the conviction held even in my adult years. And I'm traveling 52 trips a year as a VP of marketing at Proline.
Really?
Do I have a choice? And when you put yourself in that mindset of, what are my alternatives? I just got off the phone with a young lady that I coach constantly. And she's just gotten her mother out of the hospital. Her mother is bedridden. Her mother is showing signs of dementia. She got a diagnosis that her husband has cancer in both the esophagus as well as in the colon. Who do I kick out? Nobody. I promise you there's a way. Even with your siblings acting crazy and y'all not getting along because you got too tight Teddy, too busy Betty and Bob, shame Sally, and resentful Ronnie. This is the part where you have to understand that this is the healing part of this process, to say our relationships are broken, our hearts are broken, Lateris.
Yeah.
And to heal that broken heart sometimes is the process of loving the individual that loved you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's real good. A lot of your conversation is wrapped around faith, based on Christianity and our mandate by God to fulfill not only the purpose that he has in our lives, but a part of that purpose is to take care of our loved ones. How is faith demonstrated in caregiving?
Well, since you brought up the Bible again, not like I haven't, right?
Yeah. All these scriptures you keep dropping.
I know. What faith without works is dead. Let's get to work.
All right.
It's really and truly that simple. So we talk a lot about the actual phases of caregiving to the stages of Alzheimer's. The reason why that's important is most people don't understand all of the actual phases they're going to have to walk through. So some of the topics that are hard.
Yeah.
You need to know that without a power of attorney, you really cannot execute anything for your parent. Nor can anyone execute anything for you. I was on a call last night. This is a last minute scenario where someone has renal failure. The family doesn't know where any of the papers are. Why are we doing that? In America today, in order for you guys go to the hospital, you see advance directive. Actually, that all the time. Go to the emergency room. Do you have an advance directive? Well, what is that? It is time for you to understand power of attorney. You need to understand advance directive. You need to understand transfer on death deed, where you're able to actually do what's called a beneficiary in your home, where if you pass away at 11:59 p.m., that house is deeded to them at 12 a.m.
Really?
Period. Protecting it. You want to back it up with a will? Both, of course, in the case of the tithe, you're going to file it at the county records. And this is really and truly what the National Caregiver Day of Prayer is going to do. We're not going to just pray for you. We're not going to just have the pastors coming on and give you the sense of the hope and the healing and the faith that you need in your life and covering you in terms of you're being strong, you're being strengthened, you're being able to strengthen your parent. This is all about you getting information because you said, Latera said, this is a season of tough. Wait a minute, let me say it one more time. Latera said, this is a season of tough topics.
Yeah.
So wills are not easy. Your parents really, I don't know what our parents were thinking about. Like, you had 12 kids. You had 12 kids. We don't get along. What you did is you taught us to get the heck out your house.
Yep.
Now we need to care for you. You must bring the subject together as a family of the will. Fight about it now. Don't fight about it later.
And that's what always happens in families. They can't even mourn the loss of their loved one because they're too busy fighting over the house, fighting over the little dress that mama left, fighting over her jewelry, fighting over her car. It's just... It's sad, but the reason why people don't want to focus on the will is because it seems like you're preparing for death.
Oh, of course. I came here to stay forever. So did you, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be here forever.
Look, last time I checked, we got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. We's going to die. Okay? And it's amazing because people will say something like, don't say that word. Don't say the C word, the A word, the D word. I'm like, you guys are just going to eliminate the actual vocabulary of our community.
Yeah.
This is not home. Why don't we agree to know how to age well together and individually? So my son, y'all pray for me. My son has complete control over this part of my life because of my age and my number.
Yeah.
So I have to advocate that role to him for him to then advocate for me. And that's called the trust model.
Yeah.
In that trust model, it deals with the financial aspect of it. He understands I have a long-term care insurance policy. He understands that mom also is entertaining a critical care policy. You need to know what that is. That's an opportunity for you because you don't know how you're going to fund this. In the case of me, I wasn't in the military. So there had to be something else there. If your parent was in the military, there are funds available for caregivers. You can also be paid sometimes by your own state for caregiving.
Yep.
Exactly. We are not prepared. And faith and works is in this particular instance, faith and works in this instance is actually becoming knowledgeable on how to care for your parent while you're going to run a parallel and learn to care for yourself.
So it's a balance. I mean, it's definitely a balance of knowledge and implementation. What are some of the pitfalls that you found where people come to you a little too late trying to implement certain things that you said, gosh, if you'd have came to me right before your mom was maybe put on hospice or right before your loved one passed away, you could have gotten all these type of tools?
If I were to ever tell an audience the most important thing they can do is that you want that power of attorney executed prior to your parent being diagnosed with a debilitating disease.
Okay.
You lose power when they cannot advocate for themselves to then transfer that power to you.
Really? How?
Because if they don't have the power of attorney, in the case if they're in full-blown Alzheimer's, there's no attorney that's going to execute that document.
Really?
Why would they? They can't advocate for themselves. It's on record, cognition decline. It's on record, it's Alzheimer's. You walk into that attorney office, you've got a parent that looks as if they're ill. He begins to ask him the question, and they then go down what lane?
Yeah.
He's going to say, I'm sorry. I don't believe this person is in their right state of mind to execute this document properly.
So the state takes over?
Not necessarily. So one thing I need people to understand is that aging is local. So the guidelines per state are the guidelines per state. And literally with our program of National Caregiver Day of Prayer and Finding New Tomorrows is that we try to give you those links for that state so you can understand their guidelines. You don't necessarily have to get into the lane of setting up the state taking over because you can always move to guardianship. So once your parent is
okay, so hold on.
Okay.
So it's a difference between caregiver and a guardian.
So caregiver is the individual that is caring for the loved one. The loved one in this instance may need a guardian to be able to advocate for their life. That is a court proceeding.
I watched this movie last week. This is interesting. It's called I Care, or something like I Call I Care. And it's about this lady who put this big old ring together to fleece the elderly out of their life insurance money and was taking all their stuff or whatnot. And I watched that and I was like, wow. But she became the guardian. And as the guardian, she would dictate what care facilities they would go to and all that stuff. So
I'm going to tell you how big it is. If she's a guardian, imagine when the state takes over.
Yeah.
Because if the state takes over, you can't even plan your family's funeral.
What?
When the state takes over, you have to advocate with them over what you want as the burial for your parent. And this is only because we choose not to do the paperwork, render unto Caesar those things that are Caesar. This is a process to protect us. And we're choosing not to protect ourselves. I'm sorry, did we go down that lane?
Yeah, we went there.
Something.
Well, I feel I'm just, man. Well, instead of getting frustrated, I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to go make sure, because I'm thinking about my mom. I pay all her bills. I take care of her. Why don't I have power of attorney? Why haven't I just had that conversation? And it won't be a problem. My mom trusts me fully, and she'll be like, okay, it's no big deal.
Yeah,
but we're afraid. Well, I'm going to take it off of I'm afraid to just have that conversation. Mom, hey, let's get this, this power of attorney. Because I remember even trying to convince her to get the COVID vaccine. That was a big issue. I ain't doing nothing. I ain't taking it. All right, Mom, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So to have those conversations is like, all right, so I'm challenged. This week, I'm going to have a conversation with my mom and say, hey, Mom, let's go ahead and take care of this.
You know what I like about what you just said? There are families right now where there's that one sibling that can talk to their parent.
Yeah.
And all the siblings, you know how we were as kids. You go tell her.
You go tell her. You'd be the Peter that be the spokesperson for the disciples.
Don't let me go there.
I'm trying not to preach.
Okay now. So I think that's powerful, because if you look at, you asked a question about the difficulty, the segments of people. I've got a group of people that don't want to have the hard conversations.
Right.
I need people to have the hard conversations, even if their parent denied that conversation.
Yeah.
So that if, say for instance, your parent comes back and says, well, I don't want you to be my POA.
Right.
Well, then fine. You get together as siblings. Oh, fine. Really? Yeah. You mean we need to get along now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to agree that we need a plan for our loved ones and a plan for ourselves. We need to agree. And this is what I mean about faith and works in this instance, because we have got to believe that we can move ourselves to a point for the care and well-being of our parent, and then eventually ourselves, and that we've got children or nieces and nephews that want to make sure that we get cared for.
Right.
We've got to change this paradigm in our community.
Well, we got our marching orders, so we got some work to do.
We have a lot of work to do, but I want us to recognize that this is under the auspice of hope and healing and faith, and that inclusive of that 3-part process, there is going to be lives saved.
100%.
Period.
Yeah.
Ourselves as well as our parents. So I have a particular call to action for your audience.
What you got, Pat?
I want them to join us on November the 26th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. That is in Central Time at Caregiver Coach Pat Bailey on Facebook, as well as on YouTube. I want them to be prepared to have pastors praying over them, their parent, and the process and resources. I want them to recognize that for influencers and leaders in the community, they're prepared to offer up words of encouragement.
Yeah.
Because we need to know that we're not alone in this process. I want them to understand that we will go through these various facts and stats, but I also want them to understand this. We're going to put them in the right mood. We're going to bring some music, some inspiration in their life in the area of sound for 4 hours, because you and I believe in prayer and what it can do for us.
He said, what time again?
It's going to be 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Time on November the 26th.
November 26th, right after Thanksgiving.
Right up. It's the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, hey, listen, y'all heard of the Caregiver Coach, Pat Bailey. It's a call to action to join her November the 26th from 7 a.m. That's Sunday, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's an amazing time for restoration. A lot of caregivers, I know you feel depleted. I know some of you haven't even implemented respite care, but this is going to be your spiritual respite, an opportunity for you to be filled, an opportunity for you to hear the voice of God, give you a level of rejuvenation so that you can pick up this banner and continue to run the race. It's an opportunity for you to get wraparound services from other believers to be able to link arms with you and keep you lifted up. It's a moment for you to just find hope and to know that everything that you're doing is not just for happenstance, that these seeds that you are planting, I love what the Caregiver Coach Pat Bailey said, where she says that honor your mother and father in the Lord, for your days will be long. This is that moment. It's that moment for that extension to take place in your life. So listen, Pat, I greatly appreciate you. I thank you for helping me. Like, I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm going, gosh, okay, I need to talk to my daughter. I need to give her power of attorney. I need to, all that. We don't know the day or the hour where we'll be called home, or even where we may end up getting in an accident or whatever may happen, getting stricken with a terminal illness where we are rendered not able to make decisions for ourselves. And I want to make sure that I put the systems in place to put a knowledgeable person with my best interests to be able to cover me when I can't cover myself. Anything you would like to add before we conclude?
Yes, I want to let you know that as you take your mom through this aging process, it would be an honor to be your coach through it as well.
Oh, you already know it. I've drafted you. You didn't have to draft me. I said, I want to go to somebody that already know. You understand me? I'm a wise man. So you said you've cared for two, your mother and father. I said, listen, I know you got some tools to help me run this race.
Well, then I tell you what, you're giving me an opportunity to be on this platform. It's everything. Thank you, Lateris Whitfield. Thank you so much.
Listen, y'all give it up for my homie, the Caregiver Coach, Pat Bailey, y'all.
Caregivers, join us on Sunday, November the 26th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Time at Caregiver Coach Pat Bailey, and we're going to inspire you and your parents on how you can learn to age well together.
Pastors will pray for you. Leaders will inspire you.
Music will uplift you, and resources will be there to sustain you through this caregiving process.
We look forward to seeing you online at Caregiver Coach Pat Bailey on Facebook and YouTube.
On Sunday, November the 26th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Time.
See you there.